Boom! Good afternoon, good evening, and good day to you. My name is Samuel Davis III, and I am here today to talk about unexpected blessings. Today we're going to talk about unexpected blessings. I got my partner here, Gordon. I'm going to bring him on in a minute. We're going to talk about unexpected blessings. And before we begin talking about unexpected blessings, I'm going to talk about the unexpected blessing I just got today. Man, I have been going through the last 90 days working on getting my home HELOC so that I have my in-laws living with me, and we are doing an upgrade for them, and we're doing fencing and solar panels and doing the whole 9 yards. And last night, so how do I say this? My in-laws have memory care issues. Last night, it didn't seem like those memories were really working so well. And I had a lot of anxiety on my mind because today was the day we were supposed to sign. And my co-signers were not mentally there. And you know what? I sat back and I stressed myself all night, talked to my wife on the phone. She happens to be out of state right now. We talked on the phone. My anxiety was going up. I'm like, God, please. What am I going to do? Am I going to catch an attitude? If I have to reschedule this thing? What am I going to do? And how do I calm my mind down from thinking all these negative, bad thoughts? And you know what I did? I just shut up. Got my mouth quiet. Said, shut my mouth, get my mind quiet. Took me some melatonin, went to sleep. Woke up this morning, still was feeling it, but you know what? I said, I'm going to press on through, God. We got through. Woke up the in-laws, and everything went without a hitch. That is an unexpected blessing. Man, you don't know what's going to happen with all this funding that I'm going to be doing for the house. We got a second level coming up. We got fencing. We got cameras. We got the whole 9 yards. So this is an unexpected blessing for a Thursday. This is an unexpected blessing for me. I don't know what more to say other than that, but I'm going to welcome my boy Gordon in here. And just to let you all know that we are here to talk about unexpected blessings. Gordon, I'm going to jump out here and I want you to jump in with me. Talk to me, man. You have any unexpected blessings going on in your life?
Man, I think I'm just blessed because in general, like I can't say that anything happened recently, right? In general, but I think in general, the position that I'm in life, the things that I'm doing on my day-to-day, my daily activities, the amount of time freedom that I have, because some years back, well, actually, as far as probably my whole adulthood, actually, my goal has been to be a completely independent entrepreneur, versus having a job and working for somebody else, right? And that's something that I've always wanted because of the time freedom, control of my time, right? And I'm not saying one's better than the other. Everybody, has their fit, I guess. But I mean, from a young man, coming out of high school, I went to some community college. I dropped out months in. A cousin of mine and I started a graphic design business, designing T-shirts and different things like that. And then he decided that he wanted to go to get some higher education, focus on design. He went to go. So then I was on my own running the business, and instead of doing T-shirts, I switched to doing more like business marketing and advertising and designing logos and signs and banners and all that stuff for small businesses. And that grew and became what it was. And I ended up partnering with another buddy of mine, and we opened up a shop. And although, from then on and more recently, I've switched from marketing and advertising to financial services, and all of that to say that I'm still today not a fully independent entrepreneur. I have a job. I have a 9 to 5. It's not a 9 to 5, but I have a job, right? and at the same time I'm running my business. My job is part-time, and you could almost say my business is full-time, because I put more hours into the business than I do my job. But the fact that my job in the morning ends at 10 a.m. and I have the rest of the day to focus on business, to focus on the community work that I do, my faith stuff, my family. I'm here almost every day when my kids get home from school versus them coming home to an empty house. If I need to meet with somebody, I can break away and I can go to a meeting, I can go to an event, I can do. So I believe, this time freedom that everything up until now has led to me being where I am now. So I see that as a blessing. I could focus on the fact that I still have a part-time job, right? But my perspective is going to determine how I feel at the end, right? And so if I look at that, it's a blessing of its own too. It's that steady paycheck. You could call it my number one angel investor, you could say, maybe. It comes with benefits. I mean, my wife and my 4 boys have, medical, dental, vision, all of that stuff. Well, my oldest actually doesn't anymore because he's grown up and married and all of that, doing his own thing. But for, while my boys were growing up, we were able to have all of that. And so I can focus on that, or I can say, I'm still pushing and I'm not where I am. But either way, as long as I'm honest and focus on the blessings, those are the blessings, right? I can go to city council meetings. I can be a member of the Parks and Rec Commission. I can do the faith stuff. We have different conventions and meetings and things for planning and organizing. If I had a normal 9 to 5 where I had to be gone the whole day and not get home till 6 or so, I probably wouldn't be able to do all of those things. So I feel like, to me, that's a blessing, right? And that's kind of the way I'm looking at that.
Okay. Hold on, let me get this in here. Just a second. Let me go here. I'm going to jump in because we got one of our good friends that joined in here too. Robin has joined in, and we're talking about unexpected blessings today. I started out with talking about that I finally got the paperwork signed for my HELOC. Gordon has discussed all the abilities that he's been able to do with the business that he started. He's got free time where he can do pretty much what he wants without any type of hindrances to keep him going what he's doing. So my question to you, Robin, if you are available, and I'm going to bring you in now, is tell us about an unexpected blessing. Now, for some people, that's like what I mentioned, is signing signatures. I know at one point there was a time where you said, hey, for me, just being able to drive to work, because you had a 2-hour commute almost, something like that. So tell us, Robin, what is a unexpected blessing for you?
What, besides you guys?
Robin Shin, the man, the myth, the legend.
So this is you prepping your coffee in honor of your brother right now, right?
Right.
Is that coffee?
It is, actually. It is. I'm screwing it up. So good thing he ain't watching right now, because he'd be making that shitty pot.
What is the brand? Let me see the brand.
Oh, it's just cheap ass, signature. It's a Safeway generic brand.
That's some select top shelf stuff right there. That's somebody signed it and they selected it, and
right, exactly. Well, you want to talk about unexpected blessings? They're just they are everywhere. You can talk about external and internal as well, right? The external blessings is, how lucky did you get, in your life, your health, right? That's probably one of the biggest ones, right? Your ability to do things and to move and to, Sam, you're experiencing that right now. I mean, you're watching people whose health are deteriorating, and you know, it's you have to really be grateful for your own ability to move around your own house without falling down.
Oof.
Right. At work, you know, we have some new employees at work, and I'm kind of dismayed at how you know, they're in their 30s and 40s. These guys are half my age, and they have half my mobility.
Half?
I would say so. I mean, they can't jump, but they can't run up a flight of stairs without aches and pains, and they can't, you know, they're just not taking care of themselves. And they don't, I don't know, they just don't, you know, come on, guys. Between us graybeards, they don't make men like they used to.
Hey, are these guys coming from ex-military guys? What's
Oh,
that?
yeah. They're all ex-military guys.
Oh, they're coming in busted up like that, huh?
Well, you know, they ain't that busted up, man. They like to go on about how busted up they are, but they're not that.
Disability busted up. They're trying to get that VA money.
Yeah, they're just, well, I don't even know about that. They're just mentally weak, you know. They piss me off. You know, I'm that grouchy old guy at the shop, right? Like, get off my lawn and, you know, fucking fix it yourself, kid. You know, I mean, you know, you don't know how to plunge the toilet? What's the matter with you, right? So yeah, you gotta I have to get off my high horse and shit, you know, literally. But I mean, let's talk about, like I said, that's the external blessing. Like those are things that happen, you know. Like Gordon, you mentioned that you have a great job that you like, that's allowing you and giving you the, you know. But then there's the internal blessings, and then, you know, good fortune and good luck it's always good, and it's very important for us to always keep our mind focused on the good fortune that we have, and the reason is that we need to focus what allows us, by focusing on our own personal good fortune, we get to become open to the misfortunes of others, because everyone's fighting a battle. Everyone, you know, I don't care who you are, right? Everyone's fighting a battle, because if I sit there and I go, well, you know, how come these people can't do certain things, or how come they can't afford this, or how come they're doing that, or how come they're acting in a certain way? You know, every time you talk to somebody, and if you really start to get to know their story, they're fighting a battle you don't know shit about, right? You don't know shit about their battle. And the person that made that most clear to me is a guy called, I'll put it into the chat later, but he is a hostage negotiator, or formerly a hostage negotiator. And he wrote a book called Never Split the Difference, which is all about how to do negotiations, right? And he's, you know, he made good money selling this book, because he was a hostage negotiator, and he teaches you how to negotiate anything from, you know, getting a higher, you know, get your salary, you know, getting a raise, to selling a car, or getting a better deal in a car, and all that kind of stuff. And he was the one who made that clear, because you can sit there and you can talk about some horrible terrorist who's got people, you know, who's you know, taking hostages, and you know, kidnapping children, and about, you know, murdering. I mean, some people that just need to be, I mean, they just need to be shot in the head twice, right? And he says, but if that's how you approach it, right, with this idea that this is somebody who needs to get shot in the head a couple times, you're not going to get the hostages, right? You're gonna kill the hostages if you don't fucking open your mind to this motherfucker's story, right? And everyone's fighting a battle. And he says, even these hostage guys, these kidnappers and shit, right? You know, kidnapping children and threatening to kill them unless they get paid money. They're fighting a battle. And he says, if you want to get those hostages back, you know, you can shoot them in the head after, but before you shoot this motherfucker in the head, you need to get the hostages. And the way to do that is to understand their story. And it's very difficult for us to understand how unfortunate other people are unless we open our minds to how fucking lucky we are. Because as they say, you know, good luck has, you know, good luck you know, what is it? Can't remember which one it is, but good luck has fathers and bad luck is an orphan or some shit. It's always like if something good happens to me, then I'm going to sit here and talk about how smart I was and how well raised I was and how I got, you know, I have money or I have power or I have influence or I have some fucking thing because, you know, because my parents taught me right, or because I have a college education and I used it properly, or because I worked really, really hard and other people didn't, right? And you motherfuckers got lucky, man. We forget, because there's lots of people who had good parents and end up in jail. There's lots of people who worked really hard and end up broke. And there's lots of people who, you know, got great educations and, you know, fucking don't go anywhere with it, right? You know what I'm saying? So, unless we start, and this is a great topic because it encourages us to really look at, okay, you got to be grateful. You got to be grateful. You got to look at your blessings, count your blessings. But why? Right? Why, oh master? You know, how come I just can't say, hey, I worked really hard and I got really lucky? Well, because that is the seat of compassion, to realize that you are not fucking special. You are fucking lucky. Right? And that's important.
So let me ask you this then. Do you appreciate, when you appreciate these things that come up, do you, what's the word? So I say, I'm using myself, for example. Things come to my mind all day long. That's the ADHD mind, as they say. I got a lot of stuff running through it. But something happens and I recognize it, and I literally, I acknowledge it. I verbally, you know, if I'm walking somewhere and I say, hey, whoa, man, somebody sent me 15, I got a $45 rebate. Hey, man, that's what's up. You know, thank you, God. That's the kind of stuff that I do. And I do it because I'll say this, and I'm gonna use the prison again. You know, when you're used to seeing people who got their stuff taken away from them and they're stripped of everything, and all they got is a 6x9 cell and a bunkmate, or maybe 2 or 3, depending on what the population is like, you don't really got much. And man, you know, you learn to appreciate what you got. You know, in the military, you had your duffel bag. You put all your stuff in it. You know, no matter what was going on, you threw all that stuff in that duffel bag, threw it over your back, and you were ready to go. You could go anywhere in the world with that duffel bag. You know, acknowledging those little small things like that duffel bag, because man, if I didn't have that duffel bag, I'm scooping everything up in my hands and I'm holding it and wrap, you know, putting it up in my shirt. It's a hassle. I take these things seriously. I take them seriously. I mean, I really do. I said this, I think, the other week. You know, being positive, it takes energy. Being that positive person around, you know, it takes energy. Now, when I get back home, I am tired as hell. It's time for me to lay down. You know, I put it out there, you know, and I want myself, I challenge myself to be that difference maker wherever I go. That's my challenge. Talk to people, to say something to people, whatever. That's me. But I wanted to know, do you, Robin, do you actually acknowledge verbally or mentally, or do you just kind of blow it off? Do you, those good things that come your way?
Oh, I acknowledge it. I mean, I'm always like, you know, I see something that, you know, I see something that happens to me or something, well, and I go, well, you know, because they say, you know, like, because that's the other thing, is that a lot of people, because they like me and I, you know, I'm a personable guy, and people will go, oh, well, we like you. And so when they see that I have any kind of a skill, right, they go, well, you know, I always, they're always, oh, you're so good at this, or you're so now, you know, and I'm like, I'm actually in a good position to have achieved these things, right? You know, it's almost like, I mean, Gordon, you speak Spanish, and everyone's like, oh my God, that's so amazing. You're so, and I'm like, you grew up speaking the fucking thing, right? You know what I'm saying? like I speak Chinese. I'm like, when people sit there and go, oh my God, you speak Chinese. I mean, that's just incredible. And I'm like, it's not incredible. Most people speak Chinese, just not you.
But now listen up. There are some.
I didn't work at it.
Hey, and speaking of that, Gordon, and I want Gordon to jump in on this because Gordon didn't speak Spanish all the time. Gordon started out like a regular Joe, like all of us, and he ended up having to work to get himself there. Gordon, I mean, you can speak to that. How was it for you when that whole situation where you just didn't know English and the honest, how that felt to you, man? To like, you know what, I gotta get my stuff together. Did you take most people take an ESL class, so what did you take, a SSL?
Well, I think Shen's right on point, at least for me. Like, I did go up and down. When I was my first language basically was Spanish. When I went into kindergarten, and I say it because when I went into kindergarten, when I started school, whatever that was, kindergarten, first grade, I had to take ESL to learn English because it was mostly Spanish. But that again, to Shen's point, it wasn't me saying I'm going to spend an hour of my evening studying English and I'm going to learn English and I'm going to practice. It was just, I was 5-6 years old and I was thrown into this class because the other teacher didn't know how to communicate with me and they needed me to be in somewhere where we understood each other, right? I knew orange was orange and blue was blue and that's a square and that's a triangle.
Right.
But then so at that point I'm bilingual, right? After a period of time. And then my parents divorced when I was young. My parents divorced when I was 8, and so our house went from being a lot of Spanish to very little Spanish being spoken. Mm. And I from age 8 till say 17, I forgot most of the Spanish because I just didn't practice it anymore. And so at that point, my Spanish was weak. And then I went to live with an uncle of mine. And in that household, it was 99% Spanish. So I had to relearn the Spanish. And so, but it was more of me shifting between environments and having to adapt than me saying, I can't really take credit and say, okay, I worked at it. I took this extra course. I did this on my free time, whatever. It was just me adapting to my situation. If I'm living with my aunt and uncle where it's only Spanish being spoken and I can't speak Spanish, I'm probably going to be hungry. I'm probably, whatever the case when I was 17. And so, and then now, my wife, when I first met my wife, she didn't speak any English. And so, meeting her and having to get my Spanish even better, more on point, otherwise she probably wouldn't be my wife at this point, right? I had to improve, but it was still me adapting to my environment so that I could get the results that I needed or wanted or whatever the case. It wasn't like I can't really take credit and say I worked hard at learning this new skill or whatever it was. So
yeah, so now she listens carefully to everything you say and does what you tell her, right?
I can't say that. I can't say that.
You're like, why the fuck did I? You're like why the hell did I bother?
It's the other way around. I'm the one listening, like,
Me no understand Spanish.
Right. You know what? Change the subject real quick. Gordon, where did you meet your wife at? Where did you meet Anna at?
At work. We both worked at McDonald's when I was 19, 20 years old. Yeah.
You met her over the Happy Meals, huh?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
I'll tell you, man, and not a lick of English when I met her, and so.
Well, it's funny, Gordon, your story almost exactly the same as mine.
Yeah.
Right. And the thing is that, okay, you didn't have to learn Spanish, but you did. And you didn't have to learn English, but you did. But you did have to learn English. But the thing is, the ability to learn these two languages, I mean, in order to learn these two languages as well as you do, and to speak them as well as you do, you have to live in the U.S., right? You have to live in a bilingual country.
Yep.
Right? I mean, if you lived in freaking, Ethiopia, you wouldn't speak either one of these languages. right? Or maybe you'd speak English, but you wouldn't. Learning Spanish, you would have this horrible accent. You'd have to learn it from somebody who was teaching it to you, who is not probably a native speaker. And I had exactly the same experience. Exactly. Right. I was thrown into kindergarten, and then it wasn't until first grade. Actually, I was thrown into first grade, and I was set back a grade. I was actually ready for second grade because I did not speak Mandarin, and the school was a Mandarin school, and so I had to go to a Mandarin school, and I had to start from first grade. I didn't speak a lick of Mandarin at all, and I had to learn Mandarin in school. And the teachers had to, it was basically an immersion, right? And then I ended up speaking Mandarin, and not very well at some point, because I've stopped speaking it, and I don't bother speaking it that much, because I challenge you to find somebody who speaks Mandarin that doesn't also speak English.
Exactly.
Even
if you wanted to, it'd be hard to find good practice.
Right, exactly. My use of Mandarin actually comes in handy when I'm in a foreign country and I'm looking for somebody who, like, for example, there's very few countries where everybody doesn't speak English. It's the new Latin, but France is one of those countries, right, where people who speak French, for some reason, the French-speaking people, whether they be from France or from Canada, French-speaking Canada. And we have a aspect of that in Mandarin too. I'll bring it up later, but people who speak French have a tendency to be very reluctant to learn English,
That's your opinion,
or to use English. Oh yeah, they do. They'll tell you, right? They'll insist. Right? Okay. There's no Germans that say that the official language of the United Nations needs to be German. Right? Yeah. They don't fucking say that. There are no Scandinavians who sit there and say, the official language of the world and books need to be translated into Norwegian. None. They don't give a fuck. That there are no Romanians that say all the movies need to be dubbed into Romanian.
Yeah.
But the French do. Right? Even the Spanish-speaking countries, they're not reluctant to learn English. But French-speaking people are very proud, and they have a great love of their language, and they themselves will tell you things. That's why if you look at a lot of things, the original language of diplomacy was French. Like my grandfather was an ambassador, and he had to speak fluent French, even though he was from China, right? Right, and then after World War I and World War II, right, particularly after World War II. French, the French language dropped off, and France was marginalized, right? And the French-speaking people are a little annoyed about it, right? And they go, no, our language is just fine. We should use French, and everyone's like, yeah, right. We're not going to bother, right? And it's difficult for them because. And I asked my friends in China, who are always trying to learn English, and they're learning English and they speak English pretty well, but they're always trying to improve on it. And I'm like, are you guys learning any other languages? And they laugh at me. They laugh at my face. They're like, we're not learning English because we want to expand our fucking cultural awareness, right? We're very, no, we're learning English because if you want to go to school anywhere, if you want to read a book, if you want to buy a science book and read it in its original, you need to speak English, right? Yeah. And if you want to travel anywhere, you need to speak English because they say, if I go to Egypt and I want to go, get a tour of the Egyptian pyramids, I ain't going to find no German interpreter. I'm not going to find a Spanish interpreter, a French interpreter. It's going to be English, right? There's going to be an English, tour guide. Right.
Let me jump in on this because this is my little history thing because I kind of like reading history and I'll say this. Hey, the French kicked ass back in Napoleon. I mean, if you look at, if Napoleon had not been running from the British and landed in Africa and had to run and that swath across northern Africa where they ran through all those countries that speak French now, if they hadn't been running, we would have never got the Rosetta Stone. We would have never found out about the Sphinx. We would have never found out about a lot of things. The French really kicked ass. And hell, what was that in 1804 when we had the that treaty that after the Haitians beat them out, French were like, okay, we can't handle that territory over there. That's if they hadn't have turned back and gave us that we wouldn't have had the Louisiana Purchase. That's what it was. The Louisiana Purchase.
It's a lot more. It's a lot more than that, Sam. It's a lot more than that. When you talk about Napoleon, if it wasn't Napoleon, we would not be America. We would not be independent.
Right.
Because the only reason we could have beaten a country as powerful as the British with our little ragtag bunch of fucking terrorists, right, up in there in New England, is because Napoleon helped us. And the British were actually fighting Napoleon, and he was their main adversary. And we were the sideshow, and they're like, fuck the sideshow, we're about to lose Europe, right? And their fight in Europe, especially World War I, was tremendous. It was horrible, right? Because they got invaded, and everyone thought that there was no way they could. As a matter of fact, when the Germans actually in World War II, when the Germans beat the French and took over as quickly as they did, that was a huge shock to everybody because France was still extremely powerful, and they thought France was going to put a fucking heavy whooping on them. And Hitler did some good tactics and some, smart moves, and he managed to get in very, very quickly because and there's a good reason why we thought the French was going to kick his ass, because in World War I, the French were kicking their ass. They fought them to a standstill. World War I was mostly fought in France, and it was in those trenches, and it was a horrible, horrible war. And the French did extremely well, powerfully well. And sometimes too much is too much. Yeah. But yeah, like I said, but the thing is that the language, the French language has become more marginalized in recent years, and people, like I said, if you get a tour guide in Mongolia, he ain't gonna speak French, right? You're gonna fucking have to pay it fucking through the nose if you find one, which you won't, right? And so. But like I said, when I grew up speaking, sort of growing up, but here and there, right? When people, I always tell it as a joke when people say, "Oh, you speak Chinese," I'm like, well, yeah, most people speak Chinese, right? Which, if you count the number of people who speak Chinese on the globe, that's actually true. Most people do speak Chinese.
I read somewhere that it's a pretty predominant language. It's something that a lot of people, from what I read, this was a while ago, I don't even remember where I read it, but it was becoming a really popular thing as a second language if you're raising children and you want them to have the right tools in this new world that we're coming into, where borders are starting to erase and business is more international than it is local and things like that. But
well, you can tell the popularity, okay? You can tell the popularity, like in the movies. You watch a movie, right? And there's some fucking John Wick, super cool dude, right? Maybe not John Wick himself, but some super cool hero, right? And to show the sophistication and the cosmopolitan nature of that particular hero, it's very common for the movie to have him speak, in the old days, French, right? James Bond would sit at the restaurant and there'd be some hot chick across the table, and the waiter would come with a bottle of wine, and of course James Bond would rattle off some fucking French, and the audience were like, "Ooh, he's not just a fucking badass, he's also so cultured and he speaks French," right? And lately it's been Chinese.
Yeah.
Right.
That's where the money's at. That's where the money's at.
In recent years, if you want to show how sophisticated some motherfucker is, you show him speaking Chinese, which is, always irritates the shit out of me because it's always horrendous fucking horrible Chinese, right? It's barely understandable. It might as well just be gobbledygook, right? James Bond's like, right? It's just like, and everybody's like, "Ooh, he speaks Mandarin." I'm like,
he's
no,
so worldly.
He doesn't.
Actually, yeah.
Right. It's like good effort though. I'm not going to stomp on your dreams, but keep working at it. Right?
Yeah.
Well, Gordon, with us talking like this, how does that? How was your history? How was school? Were you a history guy at all? Did you like history, or did you even care? I mean, being you were raised on Oceanside, it's military, so
Yeah.
there's a lot of stuff going on. How was that for you?
In school, I didn't like history very much, and I just, growing up, I attribute that to maybe not having great history teachers. Maybe, I don't know. But since then, I really enjoy like just learning, and I can't say that I wouldn't say that I'm a history buff or even a specific like that particular history or this history, but in general, I really enjoy learning about, I think, more so the evolution of humanity. Like my mom studied anthropology, and I was always interested on, the movement of man from Neanderthal times to, going from the Middle East area or the mid Asia and Eastern Europe, and traveling all of these different ways and going across the Bering Sea before it was covered in water, making its way down the west coast of our, so that kind of stuff always interested me, and I've always been very just interested in learning how we've grown more so. Like, I'm not good at like spitting out dates. Like, I'm not going to tell you back in 1738 there was this, and in 1655. I'm not good at remembering those specifics, but I do enjoy learning how, foods were mixed, and like this dish is now, we think it's say Mexican, but if you go back far enough, it's actually maybe Portuguese, and maybe a little Muslim spices were mixed in there, or this and that. And I love learning about that. So the cultural mixing and how people learn from each other just on their travels, the, what do they call it, the Silk Road, and all the trading that was going on and all of that. That stuff really grabs me. But as far as when it happened, I couldn't do the dates and all of that stuff, but I do enjoy it.
Have you outside of Mexico, where else have you been anywhere else in the world?
I've been to Canada, up near Niagara Falls, Toronto, and that area, but not a lot. I wouldn't say I've been there a lot. Just kind of going to Niagara Falls one night to hang out, watch the mist go all over the place, and watch it go up as water, come down as ice, because it's so cold it freezes halfway down.
Wow.
And then going to Toronto, I once went to this big art fair in Toronto when I was a teenager, and they did like different types of art, paintings and music and glass blowing and all kinds of different artistic stuff. But that's really it. I've never been outside of like this continent, I guess.
Let me ask you this, going back to Canada, because have you ever, when you were in Canada, was there a Mexican population in Canada that you know of?
Not that I know of. I mean,
come on, name on their own lawns.
Listen, the reason why I'm saying this because when my in-laws sold their home, they sold their home to a Mexican from Canada, and he came down dropping cash. And I was kind of like, whoa, who is this dude? He came from Canada. Mexican came from Canada and dropped cash on the house. And I was like, whoa.
I mean, when you have money, like I said earlier, when you have money, borders start erasing, blurring and all of that. So, but like, for example, I'll give you an example. When I moved to, I didn't live in Buffalo, but the Buffalo area, I was 15, 16 years old. I was a sophomore in high school, and other than me and my two brothers, there was only one Mexican kid in the whole school. And this is 3 schools, elementary, middle, and high school, all in one building. And even he wasn't a native of that area. He was there for a year just as a, what do they call it, a exchange student.
Yeah. So
there were no Mexican kids out there, and no Mexican families that I know of. But maybe the closer you get to the bigger cities, there are. Like, I remember, because we lived out in a small little town where there was nothing to do, so we'd hang out in Buffalo a lot, and I'd run into people and I'd hear them speak Spanish, and the little Spanish that I know, I try to flex a little bit, and me thinking I know what's going on, like, are you from Mexico? No, I'm Cuban, or I'm Dominican, or I'm Puerto Rican. And so me just being ignorant, I've never met a Cuban before, never met a Puerto Rican, never met, a Dominican person before, other than on the East Coast. just expanding my perspective a little bit, that not everybody that speaks Spanish is Mexican like they are in Southern California. So
I'll bet it was a surprise to you to find out that they were hoping Mexico would lose the World Cup.
yeah, right, exactly.
When they're playing against the U.S.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, Mexico is the big villain of South America.
They're like the black sheep. Yeah, yeah.
Right. But well, that's because they're the most successful. But I just want to just jump in, and then I'll jump right back out, and you guys can continue. I want to talk about something that I was super grateful for, and we're talking about Mexicans because I'm looking at a couple right outside my window. They just walked off, I have this beautiful ranch, and it's just absolutely gorgeous. And I live with these horses, and I live on this, this property, and my boss is another thing for the landlady that owns the place is a rich lady, another person for whom I'm eternally grateful. I mean, I've lived here for so many years, and she's so generous and kind and considerate. And but man, we can't live without these Mexicans. And I have lived without Mexicans before. Let me tell you guys, that was a dark time in my life. Right? I mean,
have you guys seen that movie, A Day Without a Mexican?
Yeah, I didn't actually watch the movie, but I heard about it, and I'm like, I don't need to see that movie. I mean, motherfucker, I ain't wiping my own ass. I mean, it's fucking ridiculous. Okay, Federico, right, who works here, right? He comes here once a month. Once a week. He comes here once a week. One of the guys. We have a couple of workers, and one of them comes every day, and the other one comes once a week. And he comes once a week, and he does a bunch of work around the ranch for just one day. And then the next day he goes to another ranch, and the next day he goes to another ranch. And we live in a valley, and it's got a bunch of little ranchettes and a little bunch of freaking, just all of us little, freaking, people that have these little ranches, and everybody's ranch. He goes to 7 different ranches because he goes to a different one every day. He works every fucking day of his life. And one day he decides to go home to Mexico for a vacation, and we're like, oh yeah, it's so wonderful, Federico, you're going home to see your family. That's great, right? Yeah, I'm going to be gone for a week, right? Thick fucking Spanish accent, barely speaks English, and we're like, that's great, I hope you have a good time, rest up. So he goes away for a week. Well, he's in Mexico. That motherfucker decides he wants to spend 2 weeks. I don't know, man. He didn't come back. And this valley about lost its mind.
He was gone for 2 weeks. It felt like 6 months.
Fuck, man. I mean, we were ready for the first week. Like we hunkered down like it was going to be a hurricane and shit, right? Like, we went out and bought our own supplies and, canned foods, the water, extra toilet paper and shit. Motherfucker was gone for 2 weeks. We about fucking lost our shit. Like, where the fuck is Federico? Jesus Christ. Well, there's a motherfucker right now. He just walked past, right? And we could, it's like, I can't tie my own shoes. I don't fucking know how to start my car. The generator stopped. The water's not running. Just fucking, the roof is leaking. The fucking refrigerator ain't working. God damn, seriously. And then when he came back, we thought maybe he got kidnapped or he died or some shit like that. We about lost our fucking minds, right? And at that time, I was just like, that was you talk about day without Mexicans. That's easy. Try a week. That's how fucking spoiled we are, right?
Oh my gosh, that's crazy. Yeah.
Right. 7 motherfucking days without the guy. It was just, and this is a guy who shows up once a week, and we felt that pain seriously. Like people were just like, what the fuck, right? Where is he? When's he coming back? What's he got it? There's a pile of leaves outside. I don't know what to do. It's scaring me, right? And then he finally came back, right? He finally came back, and I saw him when he got back, and I was like, oh my God, you're back, Federico, thank God, right? And he's just like shaking his head like, you fuckers, what the fuck? I gotta spoon feed everybody in this valley.
Damn Americans.
It's like, you got a little oatmeal on your chin. Here, let me fix it for you. You fucking helpless piece of shit. It was bad, right? It was
crazy.
Pretty bad.
Yeah. It's crazy because my dad kind of does that. My dad, he takes care of fruit orchards. So
Yeah.
he's got 4 acres of guava himself at his house, and then he's got another property that's 9 acres, and it's got like avocados and some other stuff. But then he goes and he takes care of other people's orchards and picks their fruit. And actually, what he does is he takes care of it because it's going to yield better fruit, because then he buys the fruit and he sells the fruit. But I mean, he's like 70 something, and he's out there working every single day, but he loves it. He loves it.
Wow.
There he is, Federico.
Hey.
No more vacations for you.
Right? Yeah, I'm like, yeah, no more vacations, right? You work every day till you die. Okay, that's what we need from you. And you know,
who are you training to replace me?
Right. Well, you know, case in point, you know, like, you know, it's like, you ever see a homeless Mexican? Zero.
Good
Fucking
question.
never seen.
I will say this. If I said it before, please stop me. But I learned working in prison. I learned to appreciate Mexican people, and I'll say this because you got border brothers, you got paisas, you got norteños, soreños, you got all types of different people in the prison system. But what I really appreciated was there were guys that would come in, and they were coming in and out of the prison. And sometimes you see a guy, he gets released, and you know he's gone. 2 weeks later, he's back in the prison again. You know, you might have seen the guy for 4 years, you know, but then he's back again. I'm like, dude, hey, what's going on? Sometimes
it's always see you later, and I will, right?
Literally,
they would come over here, bust their tails, do exactly what you're talking about, go home with a big wad of money after 4 or 5 months, and go back home and spend 2 weeks with their family. And your little selfish tail wants him to stay with you for, you know, every week. This guy's got a family back there and kids and grandchildren. And he goes back with that pocket full of money, and he comes back and he looks like he's Scarface up in there. He's throwing dollar bills up. I'm not saying he's doing that, but he's treated like a king. You know, let an American do that. Let an American go over there. And I'll even speak for my own people. Man, let a brother go over there and find himself a senorita over there in Mexico and forget all about America. You know, forget his family, forget everything. And he's packed it up, and he's living in Mexico off the land. You know, and probably off the woman herself too. But I really came to appreciate a lot of the Mexican you know, prisoners that came through, because they had a great work ethic, you know, funny. I mean, good people, good-hearted people, and they just happen to get caught up in the system. That's all.
Right.
Yeah,
and
Sorry, Shane, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, like I said, that's one of the things I you know, I'm glad that we had this conversation and to talk about what, you know, unexpected blessings. But I mean, I lived in Hawaii. There were no Mexicans there. I lived overseas, no Mexicans. I don't recommend it. I think you should go the other route. Like, if you have a choice to live with Mexicans or without Mexicans, you know, check the box. Check the box with, you know.
I want to check this. I want to check the level of racism we're talking about here now. What is it saying? Live without a Mexican.
That's my racism right there, right? That's my racism coming through. I'm like, people are like, oh yeah, you lived in Hawaii, that was great. I'm like, yeah, you try a taco up there, it's fucking a piece of shit, right? You know.
Oh my gosh, it's hard to live where there's no tacos.
Yeah, they don't have no cilantro outside of Southern California.
Right. I'm like, yeah, you want to live on an island that has no Mexican? I mean, you know, Puerto Rico, not even Puerto Rico. I mean, no, sorry. And you know, I'll tell you another thing. You know, the other Spanish speak, they're not the same. You know, and you know, but that tremendous work ethic and the willingness to do anything. I mean, Federico here, he takes care of the maintenance of the ranch. But I tell him, when I go to Austria, I tell him to feed my horses. They're fed, you know. And here's another thing, like, people, you want to talk about racism. There is a tremendous, despite our dependence on Mexicans, I notice even amongst seriously bleeding heart motherfucking liberals, right? There is a tremendous level of racism towards the Mexicans, and I notice it dramatically within the horse horse community. And it's ironic because you depend on them so much, especially in the horse community, because we're ranchers. And you, like I said, you know, a day without Mexicans, you know, you shut down, you know, you fucking McDonald's is hurting. A ranch is shut the fuck down, right? And losing millions by the day if the Mexicans don't show up, right? I mean, or a farm, right? You know, what are these giant orange farms and giant? You know, you driving down the road and you see these giant farms out there. You know, ain't no fucking gringos out there fucking picking strawberries and you know, tomatoes and shit, right? And the thing is that, but when you sit there and talk, they talk to you about, like, the liberals who have horses, and talk to you about, like, oh yeah, the way the Mexicans treat their horses, right? And they don't treat the horses as nicely as we do, but we tend to over pamper horses too. But you know, you're seeing some people who are disadvantaged and haven't been taught any better. Again, you don't know their fucking story. But I'll tell you this, Frederico, it's not his job to take care of the horses. Not his fucking job. It's his job is to fucking mow the lawn and blow the leaves and fix the rain gutter and fix the fence and anything I tell him to do that's maintenance related. Fix the generator, because I don't know how to fix the fucking generator, right? I mean, that's you know. But one day I was sleeping and he knocks on my door and he wakes me up. I'm sleeping because I have a night shift and I have to sleep. And he says, you know, hey, Robin, this horse Fantasy is something not right, right? And I go out there and I look at the horse and I'm like, whatever, it looks fine to me. And he goes, I don't know, it looks not right. You should. So I'm like, okay, fine, right? Because the horses are my responsibility, not his. They're my responsibility. I'm the horse whisperer, right? I go out there and I stick a thermometer up his ass and I fucking put a stethoscope on him and all this shit and I check his vital signs and it all seems pretty normal, right? But he goes, yeah, not right. And I'm like, okay, fine. I'll just keep an eye on this horse, keep an eye on the horse, keep an eye on the horse. And then I have about an hour, I'm like, I have to go to work. And I'm like, yeah, maybe he's right. The horse is kind of, just seems kind of listless and bored or some shit like that. And but I still, like, if it wasn't for Frederico, I would, you know, he's tired. He wants to go take a nap. It's a hot sunny afternoon, maybe, you know? And so I'm like, but someone says something wrong with the horse, I can't take a chance. And I have to go to work and I can't watch him all night. So I throw the horse in the trailer and I drive him an hour and a half to the fucking horse hospital. And I said, there's something, I'd like you to keep monitoring this horse. Don't worry about the money. We got the money to pay for it. Just keep an eye on this horse. I got to go to work. Call me if you have a problem. It's not my horse. It's the landlady's horse. And she's out of the country. And they call me at work and they say this horse is colicking very, very seriously. It's got a very unusual form of colic, not the normal kind of colic. And we need to fucking do surgery. Or the horse is going to, right?
Wow.
And so, you know, long story short, couple $1,000s later, the horse has had his surgery and then he has to go into rehab and we bring the horse back. And bottom line is the horse is fine. And I mean, it was like a year of after the post-surgical rehab. There was, you know, if it was not for Frederico, I mean, we actually saved some of the sperm from this horse. And if they have his first fucking foal, we're going to fucking name him after, we're going to call it Freddie, because if it was not for Frederico, that horse would have died. It was a valuable, great horse. And if it was up to me, right, the expert and the guy whose job it was to make sure everything was fine, that'd be a dead horse.
Yeah.
That would be a fucking dead horse. And the landlady was like, you know, wow, thank you so much for catching that. And I was like, you're welcome. You're welcome.
Just don't fire Federico, though.
It's all part of the service.
What'd you throw Federico a couple extra Pop-Tarts? What'd you do, man? Just hook him up?
No, I give Federico a lot of money whenever I can. Every time I ask him to do something that's not an order, he gets money. But no, I told her no. It was all Federico, you know. And luckily, my landlady is also not, you know, she's not racist about it. But it's always funny how the people that go, oh, you know, every time you bring up around horse people, you bring up Mexicans, they're like, oh God, I hate the way they treat their horses and stuff. I'm like, dude, if it wasn't for the Mexican on my ranch, half our fucking horses would be dead because this motherfucker feeds them, takes care of them, and he notices shit that I glossed over, and I'm the expert, right? It's not his job, but he did it anyway, right? And he saved that horse's life, and then here's the other thing, like he's a man and he feeds the horses, and if you have a male ranch worker that's not Mexican, good luck getting him to take care of the cat. I don't know what the fuck it is that American men have against cats, but they're just like, the cat, who cares about the cat, right? I'm a man, I'm a dog man, I like dogs. I'm like, yeah, you like something that kisses your ass, right? Right. But, you don't, the dog, if the dog was a coworker, you'd hate him for fucking sucking up to the boss, but because he's sucking up to you, you think he's amazing, right? He's not amazing, right? You got to train it. You got to let him out. If my cat is locked in the house, he shits in a box. If the dog's locked in the house, he shits on your fucking carpet. Well, you can train a dog to do all kinds of stuff. I'm like, everything you got to train a dog, a cat's born knowing. Think about that.
That's true.
Right? Wow. Don't bite
cats
the fucking. Don't.
Themselves. Yeah.
Right. Don't bite the fucking grandkids. Don't shit on the carpet and shut the fuck up. Right? Those are the fucking 3 things you got to teach a dog, and a cat already knows that shit. So, but I mean, I'm serious. Like, what's that?
I said, so we got to be grateful for cats too.
Oh yeah. Well, if it wasn't for the cat, I just showed you the picture of Federico walking in the barn. That barn would be fucking filled with rats. And before we got the cat, it was. I mean, you could see the rats like fucking, just running up the rafter, running up the posts, up the walls, and across the rafters, and you're like, what the fuck? And the rat's like, what you got? Nothing, right? Fucking gang signs and shit. And we got the cat, and I mean, it was a kitten, and like the cat was just a couple weeks old, started catching the lizards, and then fucking by the time it was like 6 months old, there was a whole new sheriff in town, man. There's no fucking rats in that barn. And if they are, they scared, right? They don't give me shit like they used to. I mean, they would be running across the rafters right in front of people because they know, like, you got nothing, you can't catch me. You're too slow, you're too fat, you're too whatever the fuck. What the fuck you gonna do, eh? Right? And the fucking cat is like, now. Yeah, oh yeah, they're respectful. They're respectful. They don't fucking tear open the grain bags and just fucking make a nest in it and all that shit. All that's done, right? Wow. And we got 2 dogs, and the dogs couldn't do shit. They couldn't do anything about it. But the cat is fucking crazy efficient. The best way to put it, and Gordon, would you understand this, is ROI, right? Yes. Return on investment, because the investment is almost zero. Yeah. Right, the investment in a dog, right, in food, money, care, training, maintenance, supervision is huge, and then the return, if you're not a shepherd, right, or you're not a bomb sniffing cop or something, the return is almost fucking nothing, right, compared to that of a cat, right. So yeah, maybe the cat doesn't fucking keep the burglars from coming in, but it also doesn't cost you anything, right? And it's not mentally. We can learn a lot about the mental power of a cat because, if I go away for 2 weeks to go visit my family in Austria, the dog fucking falls apart psychologically. He's all like whimpering and crying, and they're boo hoo hoo, my master's gone. And I'm like, fucking Jesus Christ. Right? It's gone for 2 or 3 weeks, and you act like, lock you up in a cage, and you act like you're fucking POW or some shit. Fucking, right? Jesus Christ. You do that to the cat, and the cat's going, oh yeah, you're gone for a couple weeks. Now I know how to do some time. Right? Don't fall apart just because because Massa gone for a while. Right? Yeah, so I'm very impressed with the psychological stability of cats compared to that of dogs. I love dogs. I've had them. I've done dog sledding for a while, but I'll tell you the ROI on a cat.
Hold up, dog sledding.
Yeah.
Oh, see, this is the kind of stuff, man. Here we go now. Dog sledding? Really?
He threw it in there right at the end, too.
Yeah, right. We get ready to shut this thing down. He brings up dog sledding. I didn't know nothing about this. Man,
yeah, I used to have sled dogs and all kinds of stuff. Right.
We're gonna have to talk about that on another episode. So right now, I'm gonna close this out by just saying, hey, look, we have unexpected blessings around us every day. Whether
Absolutely.
It's a cat, whether it's your life, whether it's signing signatures on paperwork, it doesn't matter. The smallest little things. And this week, I challenge you all to go out there and look for those small blessings and just try to take a mental note for it in yourself. Say, okay, you know what? That lady let me cross the street and didn't even flip me off when she did. She said, come on by. You know, look for those small things this week. And that's what I ask of you guys this week. So with that being said, thank you. And we will talk to you guys on the next one. Have a good one. And thanks for showing up, guys. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Alrighty.
Thank you.